What the f was that?
So, a few days ago, the movie Return to Silent Hill finally released. Since this movie is an adaptation of Silent Hill 2, and I am a huge Silent Hill 2 fan, I figured there was only one logical course of action. Avoid this movie like the plague, because movie adaptations of video games historically suck, and instead talk about Silent Hill 2 prototypes. Silent Hill 2 actually had quite a few different prototypes before it came out, of which I will be covering in this video. The Japanese Red Ribbon demo, the version 0.10 prototype, and the E3 2001 demo. That's right, this video is a triple feature. I'll leave timestamps to each demo if you want to see any in particular. But before this video starts, hi, my name is Dom, and if you enjoy this video, I hope you know I make tons of other videos mostly focused on horror gaming and game demos and niche gaming, and I would greatly appreciate your support if you enjoy this video. I work hard on these videos, and it would mean the world to me if you could help me grow this channel by liking and subscribing. That being said, let's get started. We'll begin with the demo with the least amount of differences from the final game. The first demo I'll be going over is the short and sweet Japanese Red Ribbon demo. This demo was distributed around a month and a half before the game's official release. This demo actually has two parts in it, a prologue and battle. Prologue is, well, believe it or not, the prologue of Silent Hill 2. It's basically only the first two cutscenes because the only real difference between this and the final game is that after walking down the stairs to get to the graveyard, the game just skips ahead to where you enter the gate without letting you walk the path. We enter and the cutscene with Angela plays, no real differences, but I also stop and talk to Angela just to be thorough, and I get to see exactly why James is still single.
What is it?
Oh, nothing. Sure is quiet here, huh?
I guess.
What a fucking retard. It sure is quiet here, huh?
It's a pretty silent hill, if I do say so myself.
I run to the gate to leave the cemetery, and that's where the demo ends. Alright, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't come back. Nah, I'm kidding. Now it's time to look at the battle part of the demo. This part of the demo skips ahead a bit to the woodside apartment building. As you can guess from the name, the purpose of this part of the demo is showcasing the combat. So you start off in the apartment buildings, not just with your wooden plank you're supposed to get from the first enemy encounter, but also the steel pipe, the handgun, and the shotgun. There's a save spot next to the entrance, but there's no saving in this trial version, obviously. I head up to the second floor, and immediately there is the sound of a man screaming down the hall, and the first encounter with the ever so iconic Pyramid Head. I'm gonna fast forward through this bit because everything is the same here in the Red Ribbon demo. It ends at the scene of Pyramid Head sticking his head in some pyramids, and shows a screen that says, "Coming soon," and that's where the Red Ribbon demo ends. Not that many differences from the main game, and honestly, not all that much I can say. But this, in my opinion, is where these demos start getting interesting, as this prototype has a large number of demonstrable differences from the final game. This one I had found out about through a Silent Hill fan site called igotaletter.com. Or Letter from Silent Heaven. I felt obligated to give them credit where it's due. This build actually wasn't released until 2019, 18 years after Silent Hill 2's initial release. But the build had apparently been created back on July 13th, 2001, 2.5 months before the game's final release. With that in mind, the game is mostly complete at this point, but there actually are a large handful of differences between this build and the final game that I will now go over. Let's start in the opening area. First thing I saw that caught my attention was this sign right here leading down to Toluca Lake, or Toruka Lake. This name wasn't in the Red Ribbon demo, which had released less than a month after this build was created, so it probably got changed very shortly before the demo released. We walk over to the gate blocking the road, and the sign now says "Welcome." Whereas now the sign is actually spelled correctly. Normally when you're moving down this path, there's supposed to be the sound of something moving nearby, making you feel like you're being followed. But in this prototype, there's nothing. If I listen really carefully, I think I can hear the sound of footsteps nearby. So now we're in the town of Silent Hill, and before we reach the first monster encounter, there doesn't seem to be any health drinks scattered around this alley like there usually is in the main game. We head down the alley to initiate the first combat encounter. There's nothing particularly special about this cutscene except for the fact that James gets a subtitle that says, "Oh." That's not there in the final release of the game. Anyway, the combat is actually slightly different in this build as well. Whenever you strike a lying figure, that's the name of this monster, with a weapon, they no longer make groaning noises. It's only the dull thud from the strike. Also, what is it with Silent Hill enemies and always being cheeked up?
Dumb thick.
We move on to the next cutscene, and we're greeted with one of my favorite things this prototype has to offer. The subtitles here are meant to be garbled words that have no meaning, but you get the inkling from the few existing letters that someone is trying to call to James. But one of the subtitles has a full sentence in it that completely spoils the twist of Silent Hill 2. This did get removed in the final game, thankfully, but if you listen to the radio during this cutscene from now on, you'll be able to vaguely hear what sounds like Mary saying, "Why did you kill me?" Which I believe to be what this partial amount of text is saying. Alright, so now that we've got a weapon, the game subtly opens up to allow the player to explore the other areas of Silent Hill. Now, what you're supposed to do at this point is go to Neely's Bar, or the motorhome on Saul Street. You don't need to, but these two places give you hints on where to go next in the main game. In this version, these areas still exist and can still be explored, but they don't have the hints to guide you on where to go next. The motorhome telling you to go to Neely's Bar, and Neely's Bar telling you to check Martin Street for something to access Woodside Apartments. As a matter of fact, Neely's Bar is no longer labeled on the map either. The only building labeled on the map here is the post office. I know where to go because I've beaten this game many times and know where to get most of the key items by heart. But these hints are definitely helpful tips for new players. But chances are, if you're looking up videos like this one about Silent Hill prototypes, you're probably autistic enough about Silent Hill 2 not to need these hints. I head to Martin Street, see a different camera angle on this guy's body, grab the key, and head to Woodside Apartments. There's a health pack here, whereas there isn't one in the final game. 2 health drinks in the room with the first mannequin. The metallic swinging noises that play when you go to the 3rd floor are absent. Now is also a good time to mention the loading screen. The loading screen isn't the white footprints like we're all used to, instead it's just text that says "now loading." The room with the handgun has a bunch of ammo on the cuck chair in the corner. Honestly, they're not stingy with the items in this prototype, they kit you out in this version. Now that we've had our first encounter with Laura and grabbed the pistol, it's time for James to do his white guy in a horror movie impression and go investigate the scary sound he heard down the hall. And here's where we meet the iconic and wholesome Pyramid Head in all his glory. We go into the apartments next to us and see the source of the noise. This cutscene is supposed to have a blur filter over it in the final game, but it's absent here. James reacts about as normally as you would to seeing a murder scene, with mild bewilderment. The writing on the side of the clock is black instead of white. We push the clock away and get into the hall where we hear our radio making noise, but there's no enemies nearby. Apparently, the explanation for this is that in this prototype build, Pyramid Head is actually still here on this side of the bars, but he's just been made invisible and had collision turned off. We can't see him or interact with him, but our radio is still reacting to him. This, of course, was fixed in the final game. We continue on and finally reach the cutscene where James sees Pyramid Head sticking his head in some You already used that joke. James hides in the closet instead of running out of the room like a smart person would, and the cutscene plays out the same until the very end where James says shit after mag dumping Pyramid Head. Normally, he doesn't say anything in this cutscene, and I don't know why this was removed. It seems perfectly fine to me. Anyway, we take the courtyard key, run downstairs to get the juice cans where there is also a first aid kit, and fast forwarding a bit, it's now time to go to Blue Creek Apartments.
There's supposed to be music here, but this cutscene is just totally dead.
We enter Blue Creek Apartments and walk into the first apartment's kitchen, and normally where there's a health drink is instead an ampoule. If you don't know what an ampoule is, it's the Silent Hill version of the first aid spray. It is the shit. Speaking of shit, we go into the bathroom where James fishes something out of a disgusting toilet without washing his hands and discovers a wallet with a code to the safe in the room. The only thing different here is that the background of the text is gray instead of black in this prototype. I backtrack into Woodside to get the 2 coins I missed and enter the room where you meet Eddie, and the sound of him throwing up before you initiate the cutscene to talk to him are not there in the prototype. Skipping ahead more, I notice a weird mistake with the map where it looks like there are 2 doors to get into room 201. But the spot where there's supposedly a second door instead has a glass case on the wall.
Alright, so I'm recording this while I was editing. I stopped because I wanted to check this, but this is the room where you're supposed to meet Angela. And in the normal game, you can't come in here if you haven't talked to Eddie yet. But I am playing the prototype right now and I haven't talked to Eddie. But you can actually go in this room without having talked to Eddie, where Angela's supposed to be. But yeah, that's pretty cool, ain't it? Alright, so yeah, here I am in the main game. I haven't talked to Eddie, or here I am in the final game and I haven't talked to Eddie. And this is what the door says when you try to enter room 109 where Angela is. The door won't open. Some power is holding the door closed from the other side.
I head downstairs and enter the room with the coin puzzle where the game proceeds to give me 4 health drinks and an ampoule. We do the puzzle and get the Linehouse key and take it to room 209. This room has a few differences, the first being that the whispering sound that plays in this room is now missing. The next is that if we walk out onto the balcony, it's now strangely nighttime in Silent Hill. In my personal opinion, I think the fog here looks really jarring as it's very well lit despite it being pitch black, and I'm glad they changed it to really foggy daytime in the final game because it looks much better, and it also makes more sense. Last is that there's a first aid kit here on this chair, whereas the final game has handgun bullets. Personally though, I think we have enough health items. We take the apartment stairs key, head to the stairway, and... that is where the prototype ends. A lot more interesting than the Red Ribbon demo, I must say. There was a higher quality and quantity of content to talk about this time around. I'm glad they changed some of these things, as I think a lot of them would have really ruined the game. I also think oversaturating me with health items would have really watered down the horror of Silent Hill, as Having a buttload of health items would just make me feel like I'd be cheating, but we've still got one more and I've saved my favorite one for last. This build of Silent Hill 2 is actually the earliest of these builds, being dated at May 1st of 2001. And being the version used at E3 of 2001. Since this build is the earliest and the most unstable, it's noticeably more glitchy and shoddy in some areas that we'll be going over. This version has a different main menu than the others. The background image is a chain link fence, and the only option is to start the trial. We press start, and we don't start at the beginning of the game this time around. Instead, we start in Brookhaven Hospital, and the game immediately horrifies us with the loudest and most unpleasant background noise imaginable. This noise plays for as long as you're on this floor, so I don't want to spend too much time here. I open up the inventory and immediately see a number of differences from the final game. Instead of the health gauge being a color-filtered screen of wherever you were when you paused, it's an image of James with a flashing colored line behind him that's far more in line with the health gauge from the original Silent Hill. The menu noises are vastly different too. Instead of the familiar light duding noise we're familiar with, this build instead hits us with loud bangs and bwongs throughout the menu. Lastly, the green square representing items you're combining are always visible, whereas they're only visible in the main game whenever you're combining an item. Now I open up the map and see the hospital.
Another thing worth mentioning is that the rooms are misspelled or their names are changed. Pharmacy is spelled Parmacy. The examination room in the final game was actually consultation room in the demo.
Most of the doors are marked off, most likely to help people playing the trial at E3 not waste time exploring doors that they can't enter. So, I enter a room adjacent to where we started, that being the reception office. The loud annoying background noise goes away for a bit when I open the inventory and is replaced with this weird alien droning noise instead. I pick up a health drink and shotgun shells, and the items are not highlighted green in this build. It's here that I realize we also don't have Maria with us, and we're walking around the hospital completely alone. The note next to the typewriter no longer lets us read anything except the very end where it says, "I got the key from Joseph. It probably goes to that box," likely omitting the rest of the notes so that the demo can keep at a decent pace. I walk out of the reception office and notice that the camera keeps spawning in outside of the game's boundaries in the walls and has to keep readjusting itself to be in the game world proper. I also notice in the inventory that the description for the pistol calls the magazine a clip. Unrelated. Like the localization of Resident Evil called these clips. They're not called clips, localizers, they're called magazines. They're even called magazines in the Japanese versions. You have the proper terminology right there. How did you manage to I then proceed to not get mad and continue the demo as normal because it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big fucking deal. Alright, so now we head up to the second floor and start exploring there. Finally, the noise stops. Now the game is eerily quiet with nothing but the sound of your footsteps. We head into the men's locker room and find the bent needle, but there's no cutscene of James taking it out of the stuffed animal anymore, because there isn't a stuffed animal. It's here that I also see that there is no sound effect for picking up items, and James seems to keep looking at where items were, even after I've already picked them up. The women's locker room doesn't have the shotgun anymore, so we're still reliant on the pistol. We head into the patient hall, and the game's silence actually starts freaking me out, way more than the noise from before did, until...
What the fuck was that?
I'm not going to lie, this scared me so fucking bad. I'm fairly certain this scare isn't in the final game, so it caught me completely off guard. It's just the sound of a man crying in the empty silence, and it just got me so bad. It doesn't assault your eardrums with a loud sting or throw some big bad enemy at you. It just creeps up on you.
Oh. Fucking fly buzzing around.
I leave and decide to head to the 3rd floor, and it's around here that I realize the enemies I've been killing aren't nurses. There actually don't seem to be any nurses that show up in the hospital anywhere. There's also this creepy-ass noise playing on the 3rd floor that sounds like a wheelchair wheel being spun continuously.
What the fuck is that noise?
Unfortunately, I don't get to see what makes the noise, but it just seems to be coming from the day room. I head into the patient's area and enter S9 and get jump scared by the sound of something breaking and decide to leave.
I'm always so worried whenever I walk into one. No.
I've played this game hundreds of times and it still makes me act like a little pussy. I head to the last room in the hall and find Joseph's iconic locked box, except with half as many locks as in the final game. I need a 4-digit code as I already have the required purple bull key. One of the 4-digit codes is in one of the special treatment rooms, but the only way to access them in the final game is through the Pyramid Head encounter on the roof. In this trial version, you just walk right in, and it's here that I get to see a unique animation for James being out of breath that never made it into the final game where he bends forward. Also, some of the models used in the inventory are different, and I realized that by looking at the first aid kit. I get the code, unlock the box, get the hair strand, head to the shower and grab the elevator key, and encounter a weird glitch as I use the key on the elevator. The description for the handgun shows up where there should be text that says I unlocked the elevator. This glitch is especially egregious, however, because I just calmed down from telling these game designers they're not called The elevator opens, I take it down to the 1st floor, and that's where the final demo ends. There's no big confrontation with Pyramid Head or really any of the other characters showing up, but an interesting showcase of Konami's different visions they have for this game up until release. I like to theorize that the crying we heard earlier in that final demo was meant to be Joseph. I actually really liked that scare. It was so out of left field to me, and it wasn't an obnoxious jump scare, it was just a soft break in the silence to keep you on your toes. I love Silent Hill 2, and it deserves its place as a horror game classic, although my favorite is still Silent Hill 3.
Oh, forget it. This is way too gross. Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?
Holy crap, man. This video was meant to be out days ago. I am so sorry, y'all. I got wrapped up in a music project I was working on, but now that this video is done, I can focus on that and then make even more videos in the future for you guys. I've got a shitload of ideas for future videos I think you guys are gonna love. I got a video on some more hidden Resident Evil content coming, and I'm planning a video on the Capcom 5 here soon. A video on Silent Hill: The Escape as well. If you have any requests for future content, feel free to leave a comment and let me know, and I might look into it. I also am glad to say that I'm streaming a little more now. If you want to know what I've been up to, like I said, I've been splitting my attention between YouTube and my music that's stretched my time thin as it is. I'm still trying to find a good balance for it, but it's tough when you also have a 9 to 5 you have to attend to as well. But just know it's certainly not because I don't care about you guys. Hopefully this freak snowstorm that just happened has given you guys some time off work or school to huddle up in some blankets to watch some horror videos or play some scary games. If you were able to do that with this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff that helps me in the algorithm. My name is Dom. Stay dangerous. I will see you next time.